You know that feeling when your legs just don't seem to have the same spring they used to.
Hmm.
Maybe those stairs you've climbed 1,000 times, they suddenly feel surprisingly steep. Or getting up from a comfy chair takes a bit more effort.
Yeah, a little mental pep talk first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're trying to eat well. Maybe you're even exercising. So you start wondering, is this just, what getting older feels like?
That's a really common thought. And yeah, the immediate assumption is often just age-related decline. Simple as that.
But what if it's not?
Well, what if the real answer isn't something you're not doing, but maybe something you are doing, something you actually consider perfectly healthy?
Ah, okay. That's where things get really interesting. Because today, we're doing a deep dive into something that, well, it often gets overlooked.
It really does.
And it actually challenges some, widely held beliefs about nutrition.
Yeah.
We're talking about specific fruits.
Fruits, yeah.
Yes. Those things we think of as pillars of a healthy diet.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out some might be contributing to leg weakness, maybe knee pain, joint inflammation, even making walking tougher, especially as we get past 60.
Precisely. And it's a topic that's, frankly, rarely discussed. It can seem completely counterintuitive.
Because we're always told, eat more fruit.
Exactly. We've been taught fruit is universally good. And look, many fruits absolutely are beneficial. But the reality is, as our bodies change with age, things like our circulation isn't as strong, maybe our metabolism slows down.
Right.
Some fruits can actually have these unexpected negative effects. And it often comes down to their specific makeup.
You mean like the acids and sugars in them?
Yes, the types of natural acids, the kinds of carbohydrates, how they impact our blood sugar, inflammation, things that our younger bodies handle differently.
And what makes this so tricky, I guess, is that the effects aren't usually obvious right away.
That's the sneaky part. It's not like you eat, say, a piece of fruit and suddenly your leg seizes up. No, it's much more gradual. It builds up over time. You might not even connect it to your diet until you start noticing those persistent issues, like a sharp pain in your calf, maybe, or that nagging ache in your thigh, or your knee feeling stiff after just a short walk.
Things you might just blame on a bad night's sleep or overdoing it.
Exactly. That's why it's so crucial to shed some light on this. So our mission today is really to identify 7 specific fruits that, well, people over 60 might want to be a bit more mindful of, just to help protect their leg health and stay mobile.
Okay, 7 fruits to watch out for. But, and this is important, it's not all bad news, right? We're not just saying stop eating fruit.
Oh, definitely not. After we talk about these potentially problematic ones and understand why they might cause issues, we'll absolutely dive into some fantastic alternatives, fruits that actually support your leg health.
Great. So let's get started. What's the first surprising contender on the list?
All right, first up, pineapple.
Pineapple. Okay, I always hear about pineapple being good for inflammation because of something called bromelain.
That's the one, bromelain. And yes, pineapple often gets that positive press as a natural anti-inflammatory. It has that reputation. But despite that, it can actually have a less than ideal impact on the legs of older adults. And the main reason, it's actually quite high in natural sugar.
Ah, the sugar content again. That sweetness that makes it so tasty.
Can be a challenge, yeah. As we get older, our blood vessels, they tend to become a bit less flexible, more sensitive, maybe.
Right.
They don't handle blood sugar fluctuations quite as efficiently as they used to. So, while pineapple does have bromelain, it also delivers a pretty significant sugar hit to the bloodstream.
Leading to those spikes you mentioned.
Exactly. Relatively rapid spikes in blood sugar levels.
And what does that actually do to our legs? Specifically those tiny blood vessels down there.
Well, think about those repeated sugar surges. They can contribute to something called glycation. It's where sugar molecules kind of stick to proteins in the blood vessel walls.
So making them less flexible.
Less flexible, more prone to damage, yes. And this is especially concerning in the really small blood vessels, the capillaries that supply your leg muscles, your feet. Over time, this damage can start to impair circulation.
So less blood flow means?
Less oxygen, fewer nutrients getting where they need to go. And that's when you might start feeling things like pain, fatigue, maybe even some swelling in your legs or ankles, that persistent ache after a walk, stiffness could be linked.
Okay, so the sugar is a big factor. But isn't pineapple also quite acidic, that tangy taste?
It is quite acidic. And that acidity can be irritant for joints, especially if you already have some underlying inflammation, maybe some arthritis starting.
Like adding fuel to the fire.
That's a good way to put it. It could potentially worsen pain in places like ankles, hips, knees. Some older adults even mention feeling a kind of heaviness, like their legs feel weaker after eating pineapple. almost like it saps their energy subtly.
And you mentioned something about medications earlier, bromelain interactions.
Yes, that's another point to be aware of. Bromelain can interact with certain meds, especially blood thinners.
How so?
It might amplify their effects, which could increase bleeding risk or sometimes interfere in other ways. It's just something to keep in mind. Worth a chat with your doctor if you're on those medications. And eat a lot of pineapple.
It sounds like the really insidious thing here is that you don't feel it right away. It's not an immediate cause and effect.
Precisely. There's usually no red flag waving the moment you eat it. The harm, if it occurs, is gradual. It creeps up until one day you realize moving is just harder.
And you might be eating it thinking you're doing something good for yourself.
Which is the frustrating part. Believing it's healthy, while it might unknowingly be contributing to leg weakness or pain.
So with pineapple, the message is maybe awareness and moderation, especially if you've got ongoing leg pain or swelling you can't quite explain.
That sums it up well. Just be mindful.
Okay, let's move on. Fruit number 2, often linked with athletes and muscle power. Bananas. Great source of potassium, right? Prevents cramps.
They are indeed a good source of potassium, absolutely. Bananas get a lot of credit for muscle health.
But there's always a but today.
Well, for seniors, this seemingly perfect fruit might have a hidden drawback. Again, it relates to their significant natural sugar content, but also, perhaps more importantly, how easily digestible their carbohydrates are.
So it's not just the sugar itself, but how fast our bodies process those carbs into sugar.
Exactly. Bananas break down into glucose quite rapidly. This means they can cause fairly quick spikes in blood sugar.
Similar to the pineapple effect.
Similar effect, yeah. And when this happens consistently, day after day, it can contribute over time to increased insulin resistance.
Okay, insulin resistance, how does that connect to leg problems?
Well, insulin resistance means your body's cells aren't responding properly to insulin, the hormone that helps glucose get into cells for energy.
Right.
So you end up with more sugar hanging around in your bloodstream, and that promotes inflammation throughout the body, including the legs.
And what might that feel like?
It could manifest as maybe a dull soreness when you walk or climb stairs, or that feeling of heaviness in your legs, maybe particularly after meals, even persistent calf stiffness.
That heavy feeling after eating something sweet. I've heard people describe that.
It's quite common, and bananas can definitely be a factor there. Plus, there's another angle. Bananas can sometimes cause fluid retention.
Really?
Yes, especially in people who might have underlying heart conditions. This extra fluid can lead to stiff joints, swollen feet, puffy ankles, which obviously makes moving harder and adds to that heavy leg feeling.
So even though the potassium is good for muscles in theory,
Right.
the other stuff, the sugar and the carbs, might be sort of quietly undermining leg strength or comfort over time.
That's a really sharp way to put it. While potassium is important, no doubt, the frequent sugar spikes and the rapid carb absorption from bananas can have this cumulative negative effect on leg comfort and mobility for some older adults.
Again, probably not immediate, but builds up.
Exactly. It can gradually make movement more difficult, maybe more painful, without you realizing the connection.
So another one to reconsider if you often feel that heavy, achy, or swollen leg sensation. Okay. Let's move to fruit number 3. These seem so innocent. Grapes. Tiny, easy to eat. What could be the issue there?
Grapes. Yeah, they seem completely harmless, don't they? Even healthy. We hear about them being good for the heart, full of antioxidants.
Right, resveratrol and all that.
Exactly. But for some older individuals, eating grapes regularly might contribute to, well, mild but persistent leg pain, maybe some stiffness and inflammation.
Wow, okay. That is surprising. What's the culprit in grapes?
The main concern here is their fructose content. Grapes are quite high in fructose.
Fructose. That's different from glucose, right? How the body handles it.
It is. Fructose is processed differently. Unlike glucose, which most cells can use for energy, fructose is mainly handled by the liver.
And if the liver gets too much?
If the liver is consistently overloaded with fructose, it can start turning the excess into fat, but also into a byproduct called uric acid.
Uric acid. That rings a bell. Isn't that linked to gout? Often in the foot?
Precisely. Gout. Elevated uric acid can form crystals in the joints. The big toe is classic, but these crystals can also build up in ankles, knees, other joints.
Causing that sudden, intense pain.
Intense, burning, swelling pain, yeah. Makes walking incredibly difficult. So that sharp jab in your toe at night, or even unexpected calf stiffness, it could potentially be related to higher uric acid from, believe it or not, eating a lot of grapes.
I would never have made that connection. Grapes and gout-like pain. And you mentioned inflammation, too.
Yes. Beyond just the uric acid link, high fructose intake itself can fuel chronic, low-grade inflammation systemically throughout the body.
Right.
This background inflammation can make existing joint issues worse, lead to slower movement, maybe more pressure felt in the joints, general stiffness, all contributing to leg discomfort.
And grapes are just so easy to overeat, aren't they? You just pop them in.
That's a huge factor. They're small, convenient. You can easily eat a large bowl without really thinking about it, leading to a pretty big fructose hit pretty quickly.
So even though they seem like a healthy snack,
They can subtly weaken legs, maybe reduce flexibility, increase discomfort, especially as we get older. So if you've noticed more stiffness or swelling and you happen to eat a lot of grapes regularly, it's maybe something to consider.
definitely food for thought.
Hmm.
Okay, next up, watermelon. This one seems like the definition of healthy hydration, mostly water light. Surely this one's safe.
Watermelon. Yes, it definitely has that reputation, super hydrating, low-calorie, refreshing.
I'm sensing a pattern.
There's a surprising twist. Watermelon can potentially be problematic for seniors' leg health because of its remarkably high glycemic index.
Glycemic index. Okay, so back to blood sugar, even though it's mostly water.
Exactly. Watermelon ranks very high on the GI scale. This means the natural sugars it does contain are absorbed into the bloodstream incredibly quickly.
How quickly are we talking?
Almost as fast as eating, say, sugary candy or just plain sugar. It causes a really rapid and significant spike in blood sugar levels.
Wow. Okay. And why is that particularly bad for seniors' legs?
Well, again, it comes back to how our bodies handle these surges as we age. That big sugar spike triggers a big insulin release to try and bring it down.
But our insulin system might not be as efficient anymore.
Often, yes, insulin regulation can become less effective. This whole process, the spike, the insulin response, can significantly increase inflammation throughout the body. And this inflammation often tends to hit areas where circulation might already be a bit compromised.
Like the legs again. Calves, ankles, knees.
Precisely those areas. So that feeling of leg tiredness you might get after eating watermelon, or dull ache when you walk, maybe persistent ankle swelling that seems to come from nowhere.
Could be linked to the watermelon.
It could absolutely be linked to that inflammatory response triggered by the rapid sugar absorption. Even something simple like climbing stairs might feel noticeably harder after eating watermelon regularly.
It sounds like you're describing it as a bit of a trap. It feels so light and harmless.
It's a charming trap. That's a great way to put it. It feels light, hydrating, refreshing, but internally, it's hitting your system with a significant sugar load, subtly contributing to leg discomfort and inflammation over time.
Because it's so refreshing, especially when it's hot, it's easy to eat a lot of it, right?
Exactly. You eat a big slice or two or three, and that just compounds the problem. More sugar, bigger spike, more inflammation.
So the question becomes, is it really hydrating you in the best way? Or is each bite subtly making movement more uncomfortable?
That's the critical question to ask. If you've noticed leg fatigue seems to increase around the times you eat a lot of watermelon, it might be worth rethinking how much or how often you consume it.
Okay, moving on to number 5. A breakfast icon, famous for vitamin C oranges. What's the potential issue here? They seem so fundamentally healthy.
Oranges, yes. Synonymous with vitamin C, immunity, they're everywhere. Juice, supplements, on the breakfast table.
Can't be bad, right?
Well, for some folks over 60, there might be a hidden reality. The issue here isn't primarily sugar, although they do have natural sugars, but their high citric acid content. It can potentially pose an acidic challenge to aging joints.
Acid-causing joint problems. That sounds unusual.
It's definitely a less commonly discussed factor, but the citric acid in oranges can act as a subtle irritant within the joints. This is especially true if you already have some underlying inflammation, stiffness, maybe early arthritis.
So what might that feel like? How would it show up?
It could manifest quite gradually, maybe as increased morning stiffness in the knees, or a persistent ache in the hip, perhaps just a general discomfort in the legs after sitting for a while. A subtle decrease in mobility, maybe slightly more swelling than usual.
So that daily glass of OJ, which so many people drink thinking it's purely beneficial.
Might, for some individuals, actually be contributing to the very joint discomfort they're hoping to prevent or alleviate.
How does the acid actually affect the joints? Does it get into the bloodstream?
Yes, the citric acid is absorbed into the bloodstream, and from there, it can potentially irritate the delicate tissues within and around the joints. Plus, the combination of the acid and the natural sugars in oranges can also cause those blood sugar fluctuations we've talked about.
So it's a double whammy potentially.
Yeah.
Acid irritation plus sugar-related inflammation.
It can be, yes. That systemic inflammation driven by the sugar swings can then make each step feel heavier, more painful, especially noticeable in knees, ankles, calves.
So it's not that oranges are bad for everyone, but specifically for older adults with maybe more sensitive joints or circulation issues.
Exactly. Younger, healthier bodies might handle it just fine. But for older adults, the impact, while subtle, can be negative over time. And because oranges have such a strong health halo, it's often one of the last things people would suspect as contributing to their leg pain.
That makes sense. Okay, fruit number 6, green apples. These often get recommended as the better apple choice, less sweet than red ones. Are they also on the list?
They are. Green apples, yes, they seem crisp, clean, lower in sugar, often seen as the safer bet.
But potentially a secret cause of leg pain.
Potentially, for some.
Yeah.
The common belief is they're healthier because they taste less sweet. But they can still subtly contribute to feelings of weariness, stiffness, and leg pain in older adults.
Okay, what's going on with green apples?
Well,
Is it acid again? Sugar?
It's actually a bit of both. Two main culprits, malic acid, and yes, even though they're less sweet, they still contain natural sugars that can be problematic.
Malic acid, that's what makes them tart, right?
Exactly. That characteristic sour taste comes from malic acid. Now, while generally fine for some aging digestive systems which can become more sensitive, malic acid can be a bit harsh. And once absorbed, like citric acid, it can potentially irritate tissues, including joints.
So that tartness isn't necessarily a plus for seniors.
Not always, especially in larger amounts or eaten very frequently. We've heard anecdotal reports from some seniors linking green apple consumption to things like increased hip or thigh pain, maybe a mild warm feeling in their feet, or tightness in the knees.
Again, probably subtle and gradual.
Very much so. Not immediate, but maybe the pain becomes more frequent over time as the effect accumulates.
And the sugar, even though it's less than red apples.
It's still there. And for seniors whose metabolisms might be a bit slower, even that seemingly lower amount of sugar can contribute to blood sugar fluctuations.
Leading back to inflammation.
Leading back to inflammation, yes. Which might show up as tired calves, maybe nighttime leg cramps, that familiar morning stiffness, or even feeling a bit weak when climbing stairs.
And people often eat green apples raw as a snack, maybe even before bed thinking it's light.
That's a common habit, quick, easy snack. But that means consistent exposure to both the malic acid and the natural sugars. So despite their healthy appearance, for some older bodies, green apples might subtly make walking harder, stiffen joints, or even disrupt sleep with cramps.
Fascinating. Okay, we've reached the 7th and final fruit on this list. You hinted this one might be particularly impactful. Mango. Tropical. Sweet. What's the issue here?
Mango. Yes. Delicious, rich, tropical. But unfortunately, it can act like a significant sugar explosion for your joints, especially for seniors.
An explosion? That sounds dramatic.
It might be the most impactful fruit on our list for older folks already dealing with joint weakness or leg pain, primarily because its natural sugar content is very high.
Higher than the others we've discussed.
Generally, yes. We're not talking a moderate amount here. Mangoes deliver a really substantial dose of sugar, which leads to those sharp, rapid blood sugar spikes.
And younger people might handle that okay, but after 60?
After 60, our metabolism often struggles to process that sudden large influx of sugar efficiently. The insulin spike needed to deal with it, and the subsequent crash can significantly fuel inflammation deep within the joints.
Where does that inflammation tend to hit?
It often affects the soft tissues around the major leg joints, ankles, hips, knees. But there's another layer with mangoes, too.
Oh, what's that?
For people who might already have some nerve sensitivity, maybe due to diabetes or other conditions, the effects of these intense sugar spikes can sometimes manifest as nerve-related symptoms.
Like what?
Things like a burning sensation in the toes, maybe persistent tingling, feet swelling up more in the evening, or just a creeping feeling of heaviness specifically in the legs.
Wow, so it could even aggravate nerve issues.
It's a possibility that needs to be considered, yes. And again, mango has that smooth texture, that refreshing taste.
So you eat more of it than you realize.
Exactly. It's easy to consume quite a bit without feeling full in the traditional sense, but your body still has to deal with that significant sugar load. The physiological reaction happens regardless of how light it feels.
So over time, Regular mango consumption could really contribute to more joint pain, slower walking, maybe feeling less steady.
That's the concern. It really highlights the misconception that natural sweetness is always safe, especially for older individuals who might already have compromised circulation or aging joints.
Okay, that's quite a list. Pineapple, bananas, grapes, watermelon, oranges, green apples, and mangoes. It's genuinely eye-opening to think these common, often recommended fruits could potentially be causing problems. But you promised some good news too. Alternatives.
Absolutely. And this is the positive side. While we've flagged some potential issues, there are many other fruits that can have the opposite effect. Fruits that actively support strong legs, help reduce joint pain, and fight inflammation.
Fantastic. Let's hear about those. What should we be reaching for instead?
Well, top of the list, I'd put berries. Think blackberries, raspberries, blueberries.
The superfoods.
They really are powerhouses. They're packed with potent anti-inflammatory compounds. They're relatively low in sugar compared to many other fruits, and they're loaded with antioxidants.
And how does that help the legs specifically?
They're particularly good for promoting healthy circulation, including down into the legs. Better circulation means easier mobility, potentially less stiffness, and reduced swelling.
Okay, berries are a definite yes. What else?
Cherries, especially tart cherries, though sweet ones are good too, in moderation.
Cherries. Why are they helpful?
They contain compounds that have been shown to help lower uric acid levels in the body.
Connecting back to the grape issue.
Huh.
So potentially helpful for gout or joint pain.
Exactly. They might help reduce the frequency or severity of gout flare-ups and other joint pain. They can also offer some general relief from sore joints, maybe that burning feeling in knees or toes. Just remember moderation, as they do have natural sugars.
Got it. Cherries in moderation. Any others?
How about avocados?
Avocados, always forget they're technically a fruit.
They are, and they're fantastic for joint health. They're rich in those healthy monounsaturated fats, which are known to reduce inflammation systemically.
And they feel quite substantial.
They do. And those fats almost provide a cushioning effect for the joints. Plus, they help regulate blood sugar, giving you steady energy without those problematic spikes and crashes.
Okay, avocado toast is back on the menu. Anything else?
Papaya is another excellent choice. It's known for being very easy to digest.
Good for sensitive stomachs.
Yes, and it contains enzymes, like papain, that have anti-inflammatory properties. It's gentle on aging joints and digestive systems.
Papaya, interesting. One more maybe?
Pears. They're a good option too. They offer a subtle sweetness and provide energy. It's often best to pair them with a little fiber or protein, maybe some nuts or yogurt, to help slow sugar absorption even further. But they're generally a gentler choice for the legs than some of the high-sugar fruits.
So berries, cherries moderately, avocados, papaya, pears. It really sounds like making some thoughtful swaps could make a real difference.
It absolutely can. These fruits tend to work with your body, supporting its functions, rather than potentially contributing to discomfort, swelling, or hindering your energy and movement.
It's not about avoiding fruit, but choosing wisely for where your body is now.
Precisely. It's about being more informed and selecting the fruits that align best with your current age and your body's specific needs and sensitivities.
And if our listeners start making these kinds of mindful choices, what positive changes might they realistically hope to feel or see?
Well, over time, they might start noticing things like firmer steps, movement, feeling a bit smoother, maybe less morning stiffness, just feeling generally more comfortable and refreshed. It's about supporting the body's innate ability to stay strong and mobile.
This has been incredibly insightful. It really does make you look at the fruit bowl with slightly different eyes.
Hopefully more informed eyes.
Yes. And for everyone listening who has stayed with us through this entire deep dive, that really shows a commitment to your own health and well-being, which is just fantastic.
It really is. And please remember, it is truly never too late to make positive changes. Never too late to start feeling better and moving more easily.
Absolutely.
We know the aging process can bring challenges, aches, stiffness, maybe a little fear about balance sometimes. It can feel like your body is changing in ways you can't control.
But the core message here, I think, is empowerment. You can take proactive steps. It doesn't have to be a massive overhaul overnight.
Not at all. It's about sensible, small adjustments. One meal at a time, one fruit choice at a time, one mindful decision.
And remembering that those 7 fruits we talked about, they aren't inherently evil foods.
Not at all. They just might not be the most supportive choices for your body right now, given your current health needs and how bodies change over 60.
It's about adapting, isn't it?
Ah,
Aging isn't about restriction. It's about becoming more knowledgeable and making smarter choices for yourself.
exactly. It's about informed self-care. And when you start prioritizing foods that genuinely support your strength, your circulation, your joint health, you will likely feel the difference. Less discomfort, maybe more flexibility, easier mornings, later steps.
The goal really is empowerment and well-being, not fear or limitation.
Mm.
So we genuinely encourage you, take a moment after this, reflect on what we've discussed. What's maybe one small, actionable change you feel you could make with your food choices?
And we'd love for you to share your thoughts or experiences in the comments if you feel comfortable.
Yeah,
Your journey, your insights, they can be incredibly valuable and encouraging for others who are navigating similar things.
definitely. Thank you all so much for joining us for this deep dive and for prioritizing your leg health and your overall vitality. It matters.
It truly does. And maybe just one final thought to leave you with. If even seemingly healthy choices like certain fruits can have these unexpected effects as we age, what other common health advice might warrant a second look, a bit more personalization as we navigate our later years? It always pays to stay curious and keep learning about our own bodies.